potion. Give me either the either or the either. I told you we're out of Phoenix Down. Okay, alright!
Hi! You're listening to MageCast, the ensemble podcast by the well-read mage and a cast of mages. Each episode, I sit down with my rotating panel of guests to have some civil discourse about a single game. We're a group of games writers dedicated to long-form content and critique. You can find us on WordPress at thewellreadmage.com, on Twitter at thewellreadmage, and on YouTube. Crowdfunding support makes projects like MageCast possible. If you enjoy our work, written or otherwise, you can check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/The Well-Read Mage for more information on exclusives, rewards, and our vision for a future of better games writing and a friendlier gaming community. Links are in the description. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share MageCast with your fellow adventurers. Leave us a review, too. Oh, and now let's start the show. All right, good morning. This is the Well-Read Mage, a.k.a. Moses, the Keyblade Master Norton. Today, I'm sitting down to talk with somebody for whom morning is irrelevant. It's not morning there. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 5 p.m.
Oh, nice. Now. And I'm sitting down with Chris from Overthinker Y or Overthinker-E.
It doesn't really matter. It's the internet, so it's how you spell it that's the important thing.
Okay, so it's
the word
Overthinker
and then
space,
the letter Y.
And then the letter Y. That's right.
In the URL, it's all together, though, so it's fine.
Oh, there you go. And he is also one of our mages, the Sometimes Vaguely Philosophical Mage. What a title. That is such a great...
I try to live up to it.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, it seems like the sometimes vaguely part will be easier to live up to, right?
Yeah. It's good. I've got an easy out.
Yeah, right. So just by way of introduction, sir, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what's sort of your shtick, what are your interests, and what are you playing right now?
Okay, my name's Chris. I am from England, which is a country on a little island.
And I've been there. It's a beautiful country, I think.
So I'm from Devon in the southwest of England,
okay.
Which is kind of a cool place. There's some big cities, but also you're never more than about 20 minutes from like moors and forests and things.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. I guess my shtick is just thinking too hard about things. But I'm very good at kind of noticing something and going, man, that's really interesting, and then completely failing to come up with a conclusion. But that's okay. We can go on, and it kind of works out, I think. It's worked out so far.
Well, I mean, there's so many things in life to think about. Who's got to come to conclusions, Yeah.
Yeah, I had my blog before this one was called Absent Conclusion.
Oh.
Which basically meant that if I was failing to come up with some sort of reasonable conclusion, then I was staying on brand.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, that's good. That was good. Right now, I am playing Kingdom Hearts 3.
All right.
I think needs mentioning, and it probably goes without saying. My other half and I are working through the DLC for Spider-Man.
Okay.
So we've done, I think this the second one with Hammerhead. So we've still got the third one to go. And then also we are playing through Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Nice.
Okay. Cool. Well, I just started playing Kingdom Hearts 3 last night and completed Olympus. Well, so far as I know. Fought the Titans. And I thought it was great. I mean, it's amazing how fluid the animations look, the character models. It looks like you're watching a Disney movie now.
No spoilers, but I don't think I can give it anything other than a 10 for the review on visuals.
Really? Yeah.
I can't fault it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty beautiful game. Beautiful. It's a beautifully pretty game.
Did you laugh at the I don't think this is a spoiler, the title splash near the beginning?
The title splash.
Where they take off, head to Olympus, and it says Kingdom Hearts 2.9.
I did. Okay, so I think I chuckled, but a part of me was like, "Come on!" at the same time.
It's just Nomura knows what he's doing.
No, right. I was just like, "What? Did I buy the right game?" I had to look at the case. I was like, "Is this?" Because I know they put out. Okay, so they put out 1.5, right?
Yep.
Which I bought. They put out 2.5, which I bought. They put
out 1.5 and 2.5.
Right. So what is
on one disc?
Is that 2.8?
So there's 1.5 and 2.5, which is everything in the series up to and including. Oh gosh, what's the most recent one on that? I guess Birth by Sleep would be the most recent one on that.
Okay.
And then 2.8 has 0.2, which is basically a tech demo for KH3.
Okay.
Full title of which is, I think it's Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage, 0.2. Maybe it's then got secret chapter in it or something. I'm not sure. It's very long. Then there's Back Cover, which is a cinematic prologue that's like hundreds of years before Kingdom Hearts 1. And then it's also got a HD remaster of Dream Drop Distance, which was the 3DS game.
Okay. So there's a lot to play.
Yes, yes there is.
What is it, like 10 titles in this series or something like that?
I want to say 11.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot, considering the main games that most people will have played are 1 and 2. But you're still missing out on, what, 8 or 9 games then?
Yeah, I think it's not so much an issue that people have kind of deliberately, because you get a lot of fans saying like, oh, people think they can play 1 and 2 and understand 3, and it's so wrong. And I'm like, yes, that's true. You're not going to understand it, but it's kind of not the fans' fault if they market all of the others as being like Kingdom Hearts : something.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it makes it sound like it's not part of the main series, but in reality, you need to have played all of them. Really.
Yeah. Right. Like the Kingdom Hearts 395 over -2 days or whatever it is. I looked at that title and I was like, I don't even have time to pronounce it, not to mention play it.
I think it's supposed to be pronounced 358 days over 2.
Okay. Yeah, supposedly. I looked at it and I was like, this is an equation for the title of this game? Like, what is wrong?
Yeah, it's like, why not just call it 156 or whatever?
Exactly, yeah. But then you're like, is this the 156th title? How many titles did I miss? You know? It's an interesting series, nevertheless. But we'll get into that. So something we've been working on together recently that's been a lot of fun has been getting up our subreddit. Oh, and I just got a notification for it. Looks like somebody dropped a reply. Our subreddit, the Well Reddit. I almost didn't say it correctly. Excuse me. The Well Reddit page.
Such a good name. Such a good name.
Thank you. I don't remember who came up with it, so we'll say it was you that came up with it.
That sounds likely. I'm sorry, whoever did come up with it. No, it's a very good name.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're listening, mystery person, we're sorry, but memory doesn't serve right now. So it's been a fun little things to set up. It's growing. There's people bringing their thoughts to it, so that's exciting. The idea sort of has been, it's hard to communicate online, right? I mean, we can agree with that. We're communicators, we're writers. So we know that it's easy to get our thoughts out by writing a blog post. In the comments sections are there as well. But comment sections are very isolated, right? They're attached to a specific blog post on a specific blog, but there's not much overlap between posts or between blogs, certainly. And then you've got the problems of social media communication. Have you ever been in an argument on Twitter?
I can't say I've ever been in a full-fledged argument. I'm sure I must have had disagreements.
Okay.
But I can't think of ever having actually been in an argument, but I can kind of imagine... I mean, as you know, my approach to everything is to just be kind of err on the side of being too wordy, if anything. And I can't imagine trying to kind of come up with something that was like a satisfactory response in under however many characters it is these days.
Yeah, I think it's 140 now or something like that. I don't know. I don't count.
It went up, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been in a couple arguments on Twitter, and it's not at all fun. You've got to write this long response and then chop it into pieces and things like that. Not a great platform for robust conversation.
No.
And so and then there's the chat room option, which is sort of like what we do with Discord. But Discord is very much our inner council for for the patrons and for the mages. And we have a blast there with some conversations sometimes, but it can go so fast in the scrolling. I'll leave for work or I'll come back after, taking a break from the internet, and I'll have missed a conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all in different time zones, so
right, exactly.
I'll wake up and see 50 plus messages in Mage Chat, and I'm like, there's probably something unbelievably insightful in there, but I'm not going to be able to find it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then you've got to feel like you're catching up on old conversations. And then if you have something to say in that conversation, what are you going to reply like 10 hours later? That doesn't make any sense at all. So, so we decided that a forum style communication hub would be a good idea with this subreddit. And, you can drop a comment and you can come back later and check on it. And it just feels more immediate and direct in that sense without being so fast paced,
Yeah, I think it's generally easier to keep track of things because you've got you've got posts, which are sort of, I guess, the main thing up for discussion, and then comments that are replying immediately to that, and then comments to that, and so on. So it's easier to find kind of the thing that started a particular branch of discussion and then go from there.
Right. It's more threaded than a chat room, right? A chat room is kind of like, well, if a guy replies 4 hours later, what was that reply even to? And then you got to kind of piece it together like that. So it's been a cool platform. Thanks very much for setting that up with me.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So it was a
learning experience.
Yeah. Well, definitely.
I don't know how I ended up doing it. I was just like, that's really cool. I'll see if he needs any help, and somehow ended up modding. And I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, there you go. So, and modding has been pretty lax so far. I mean, not lax isn't the best word, but like simple so far. In that they haven't really had to.
No, most of the work was just making sure that. I mean, most of the work was just conversations with us, trying to work out what do we actually want on here. What do we want people to be talking about?
Yeah.
But I think that's something that will actually just naturally come as people start to talk about things, hopefully. But as far as moderating in like enforcing rules, we've not had to do any of that so far, which is good.
Yeah. And most of the people that are coming in are people who are already involved in the community, either the WordPress community, Twitter community, so on. So they're people we're familiar with. But I remember talking with you about sort of the kind of content that we want to see there and really emphasizing current events in gaming. We don't really have any angle on that on the Well-Read Mage site because we don't do news cycles. We do, the critiques and the opinion pieces, but those very rarely tie into the latest scandal or controversy or non-controversy or what have you. So it's been nice to talk about those things on the site. I still do need to reply to your Zelda post that I saw you put up.
About some newspaper saying Breath of the Wild sequel confirmed, and actually it's just that Nintendo are looking for developers for a future Zelda game, maybe. Which I think when it's a series like Zelda, saying Breath of the Wild sequel is not necessarily true, So it's
yeah, exactly. I mean, certainly there's going to be a sequel with a game that popular, but it's not really confirmation.
Are there any sequels in Zelda other than maybe like the really direct ones, like Majora's Mask obviously directly follows Ocarina, but if you look at the timeline, then you could argue that anything kind of immediately subsequent is a sequel, but I don't think that would be true. Maybe it would be true, but I don't think it would be accurate. I don't think it would be indicative of what it actually is.
Right. Well, there's Zelda 2 Link's Adventure, right? The
side-scrolling one.
The second NES game? Yeah. The one that not too many folks have played. But, yeah. Anyhow, well, today we're going to talk about Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 3, as we all know, has launched, been incredibly popular. There's been a ton of people talking about it. I went and got my copy yesterday, and GameStop was all out of the poster scroll. They're giving out like these fabric scroll things.
Yeah, I saw those.
Did you? I mean, they look real flimsy, but I was like, my kid would like that. But they were like,
we
don't have it.
Or were they different designs? Because I'm sure I saw someone had like a Woody one, and I was sort of thinking, is that...
That's the one.
That's the one,
That's the one. Yeah. Which is kind of strange. It's like, is this a Toy Story poster? You see Woody is like half the poster, and then it's got Sora, Donald, Goofy at the bottom, very much scrunched down there. Anyhow, but we thought we'd revisit the first game since the third game is out. The first game was released all the way back in 2002, which is nuts.
It is.
I mean,
it's ridiculous.
I was 17.
I was... Oh gosh, hang on. I was quick maths. I was 8.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's just like apologize for your age.
No, I just turned 25 last week or a couple of weeks ago, and I found that it's exactly the age where everyone younger than you thinks you're really old, but everyone older than you still thinks you're like stupidly young.
Yeah.
So I'm like right in the bracket of just kind of annoying everyone with my age.
Yeah. Oh man, wait till you get to 27. 27 was my favorite age. I'm 33 now, but we both remember Kingdom Hearts 1 fairly fondly. I didn't play it at launch. I mean, I must have played it a couple years later. Um, I was so shocked at the age of it.
Yeah.
I pulled out my copy, and there at the bottom it says Squaresoft.
It does.
I was like, dude, this is like a piece of history now. So I mean, Squaresoft isn't even a thing anymore, and now it's Square Enix, of course.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was. I'm trying to think when it changed to Square Enix. I'm convinced it was Square Enix before KH2, but whether it was by Chain of Memories, which is like the interquel between the two of them, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I would guess that 2002 was towards the end of Squaresoft, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know the exact date on that one. Do you remember the first time you encountered this game? Did you see it on a shelf and have any thoughts on it, or introduced to it?
So, am I allowed to plug? I mean, well, you were part of the collaboration that we did with the Normal Mage, Matt from Normal Happenings.
Oh, that's correct. But feel free to plug anything, regardless of my involvement.
Well, the plug is that. The plug is if you haven't read a collaboration called "The Games That Define Us" on Normal Happenings. I think is it just normalhappenings.com?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So that is a fantastic thing. There were, I think, over 30 of us basically just talking about the video games that had defined us as people, I guess. And mine kind of couldn't help but be Kingdom Hearts. So I've kind of recounted the story at some length in there. But basically, I was, I think, probably 9 or 10. So this would not have been at launch. This would have been a couple of years later. And I had like a Game Boy, and I think the first thing I played on my Game Boy was like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, excuse me, for our friends.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
I know.
This is America.
Yeah. So I think that was like the first thing I played on my little Game Boy Advance. And I played a few other things on that, I guess, and decided, wouldn't a PlayStation be really cool? I was going to get one of the Game Boy Advance SPs, you know, the little folding ones?
Yes.
And then I was like, why would I just get a folding thing of what I already have? I want a PlayStation. So I eventually managed to persuade my parents to get a PlayStation, realised I had no games for it, and ended up walking along to a game rental store, which I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. And it makes me sad to think that.
Yeah, not really anymore. It's an interesting touch point just for a second on that. They were nice in their convenience. It was nice to browse, right?
Yeah.
But they closed down because they were inconvenient. You know, I mean, people say they miss Blockbuster was the big one in the States. I don't know if you guys had that.
We had Blockbuster, yeah.
Okay. They closed down because nobody went there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like now, how does that compete with streaming anything or buying something digitally? I mean, you just plug in Netflix and it's way more convenient than having to go and do that. So sadly, it was one of those things.
It's a shame because it was in fact immensely convenient for me because I lived literally just around the corner from a shop called Choices, I think, which was eventually became Blockbuster, and then that just became a charity shop, I think. But so I lived just down the road from Choices, and you could pay something like £2 or £3, and you could have a game for the entire weekend. And it was the best thing of all time. So I played, Pokemon Silver for the first time through that. Of course, I got it, and because the save files on the cartridge, it had someone else's save game on it, so I got to be like at the end of the game already, and I was like, am I supposed to be here? Because I didn't really understand how that was working.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and that's an interesting quirk about those, because I remember the same thing with Super Nintendo games. You take it home and you're like, oh, they're at the end of the game. Should I like see what it's like, or is that spoilers? Or
but you feel bad for getting rid of someone else's work.
Yeah. You delete
when it's Pokemon
it to
and
make
you've only
room
got
for
one
yours.
save file. Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So, what was I on about? Oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
That is the point. I'll try to remember that. So, having no games on my PlayStation, I sort of wander into this shop and I'm just looking. I don't even know what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for something I can have for the weekend or whatever. See this game, and I guess it looks kind of dark, but also kind of kid friendly. And I'm thinking, right, okay, so I've just upgraded from a little purple thing that I hold in my hands to this black box that I plug into my TV. So I should go for something that's like more adult and cool, and I should be more mature or something. But also it's got Mickey Mouse on the front, so it's obviously like reassuring.
Yeah.
And then I kind of look at the back and think, this sounds ridiculous. I don't know what Final Fantasy is. Balls to it. Let's give it a go. So I sort of take it home for the weekend. I don't think I even had a memory card, so I don't know if I could even save. But basically, I played the first however many hours. Probably didn't even get off Destiny Islands, and I was like, I have to have this. And that's kind of how it was just chance, really.
Wow. I mean, well, the cover was it this cover?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the cover is very appealing.
For those who obviously can't see us, it's I think it's just the original PS2 cover from all regions. Yeah.
The characters, Donald, Goofy, Riku, Kairi, and Sora standing on some sort of gothic pillar.
Yeah, I don't know if that actually
heart-shaped moon.
I don't know if that place actually exists in the game at all.
Right. Or is that the place that never was, or whatever it was called? I don't know. Yeah, they're just posing. It's just GQ stuff. But so I remember I was already into games for a while by this time. I had a PlayStation 2 and was walking through a used game store that's now closed. And I went up and asked the clerk if he had any recommendations for the PS2. And he is like, "Oh, yes, I do." And so he pulls it off the shelf, and it happens to be this Kingdom Hearts that I'm holding here. And I look at it, and I was like, Disney characters?
Yeah.
Really? And I look at the back, and I was like, Jack Skellington, the genie. What is this? And I was like, is this like just a marketing ploy? Was what I was thinking in my head. And he was like, "No, trust me. This is something you have to try."
Yeah.
So I bought it, took it home. This is still the same copy. Fell in love with it. It is such a uniquely amazing game. With its combination of characters. So for those who aren't familiar with Kingdom Hearts at all, it's an action RPG kind of a game.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Well, because it's got the experience points and leveling up. Stats balancing.
I think I would. It's tricky to work out whether it's an action RPG or like an RPG with action elements, because certainly at the time I don't think anyone had done this thing where it's like you've got the kind of almost turn-based interface, but it's in you're running around.
Right, in a 3D space, yeah. And then you've got all these Disney characters clashing with sort of these made-up characters, but then that are unique to this franchise. But then you've also got Final Fantasy characters. That's what was really appealed to me. I was a Final Fantasy fan for a while, since the mid-90s. Playing Final Fantasy IV was, I think, the first Final Fantasy I remember falling in love with. And there were the Game Boy Final Fantasy Adventure titles that not really Final Fantasies that I played before that.
Was Final Fantasy IV the first? Because I know Final Fantasy VI is also called Final Fantasy III over here, so I don't know whether that means that 4 was the first one to actually get ported.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how the titlings work in the UK at all.
Yeah.
I know is how it works in the US.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I know that the UK didn't get a lot of Super Nintendo games that the US got.
Yeah.
So I don't know the numbering over there, but 4 was the one with Cecil the Dark Knight. And eventually
Kain,
becomes a paladin. Kain, the Dragoon. And then R6, well, it was put out here as 3, but it was really
Terra.
6. It was Terra, and that's my favorite one. And then, of course, by 7, then they fixed it finally. But
and presumably a lot of people were very confused.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Seeing some of those characters in this game was just a treat, an absolute treat. So this episode, we have a lot of fun trying to come up with titles for these.
Have we actually got one yet? I don't know if we've.
I decided on one. I let people kind of name theirs and so on and so forth. And every once in a while, I feel bad because people will name a ton, and then I'll just pick mine anyway.
Yeah.
But I did not go with Banana Hammock on the Donkey Kong Country episode, just to keep it PG. But For this one, I decided we'll go with Keyblade Runner, which I thought was a really funny title.
It's accurate.
It's accurate. You're running around, and by golly, you've got a Keyblade.
Yeah.
But some of these other ones, some of these titles that these guys suggested were really funny. Let me look at it now. I like how you mentioned here Donald Duck saying the word or saying the name Sephiroth.
Well, quacking
is
it,
hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know how they do that voice. It's just
I think the odd thing about Donald Duck as a choice is it means you always have to have subtitles, because I guess when he's in his natural habitat, he's presumably only saying like really short sentences, and then you have him explaining like, but the Heartless are taking over the world, and we have to fly there in our gummy ship, and Sephiroth's there. Oh boy, what are we going to do?
A unique problem to Kingdom Hearts is how do you handle Donald Duck exposition, right?
And also a question: why does Daisy talk normally?
Well, that's a good point. That's sort of like, why is Goofy a dog and Pluto's a dog? But they're massively different anthropomorphically. But yeah, the Much Ado About Nortings is hilarious.
It doesn't work for this one, though. I came up with it and I was like, that's really funny, I've got to say that. And then I realized it doesn't work because you don't get Norting until like KH2, at least.
And yeah, and that didn't even dawn on me for a little while until I thought about it a little longer. Disney Infinity is pretty funny. Are you a comic book fan, Chris?
Tangentially.
That's
I very rarely actually read a comic book, but I kind of keep up with stuff.
Okay. So there was and I like this title, and I want to play around with it if we ever do another Kingdom Hearts episode. But in I think it was the 80s, DC Comics put out Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was sort of their way of resolving their multiverse issues and trying to come up with a consistent canon. So I like Purple Prose Mage, Alex Sigsworth posited Crisis on Unlikely Earths. And I was like, there's so many things you could put, like Crisis on Disney Infinite Earths, all these things. I
guess it is kind of Disney Infinity War, isn't it, in some ways?
It is, yeah. No, it's got... I did want to do the Kingly Yellow Mages title, One Big Hyakken Adventure. That I told him I couldn't say it with a straight face. Complex and Filthy instead of Simple and Clean by the Mail Order Ninja Mage. Yeah, some of these are hilarious. You guys are... Yeah. I mean, some of these are like, I could absolutely never use this title. But it's very funny. But yeah, the Bizarro Mage, Winstolf on Twitter came up with the Keyblade Runner, and I thought that's just gold. So
shout out to Bizarro for being, I think, maybe the only other British person to be on a Mage cast, because he was on Side Quests.
He was on Side Quests. I'm pretty sure you're the first British person I've had on Magecast. So there you go, making it a path forward for the UK. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Well, would you consider yourself a Kingdom Hearts expert?
So I like to think that I am when I'm kind of with like the majority of people, and then if you ever go on the Kingdom Hearts subreddit, you realize no one is an expert on Kingdom Hearts, except maybe Tetsuya Nomura, like when he's having a really good day.
Yeah, right. on his bad days, he's just like, what am I doing with my life? That's funny. Well, compared to me, I already know that you're an expert on Kingdom Hearts.
Thank you. That's nice.
Well, that's not really a compliment, but yeah. So I'm gonna be picking your brain on a couple things in this episode.
Cool.
Mostly things that I don't know. Even though I've played the first Kingdom Hearts several times, played through Kingdom Hearts 2 and a couple things on the mixes, I just couldn't get into things, like I said earlier, with 3, 6, 5, or whatever it is over 2.
I mean, it's immensely tricky to talk about really any of the KH games without at least alluding to all of the other ones in some way.
Because they're very,
even
props to them. Yeah. Well, props to them that that they were able to make this interconnected universe across so many games, nearly a dozen games. I mean, that alone is an achievement. But then bringing in all of these subjects, like every time I play Kingdom Hearts, I was like, are they talking about the soul? Is the heart? Okay, so my first question to you.
Right.
Okay,
It's going to be a big question, isn't it? I can feel
all
it.
right, yeah. Okay, so this game's got sort of this sense of the duality of man, but then also the duality of universes,
Yeah.
or of the universe, as far as light and dark being very much sort of these tangible
Yeah.
forces that are like places almost too.
Yeah.
But then they talk about hearts a lot. So the question I wanted to ask you is, are hearts the same thing as what we would call the soul in different descriptions of the soul, given that there's been different descriptions of the soul throughout history?
I think you could make a case that the two are basically referring to the same thing, and I don't actually know what the word they use in the Japanese KH games for heart is.
And that would be very.
I know the Japanese word for heartless is just heartless or heartless or something. But I don't know whether that's like a back formation. You know, Japanese is a weird language for borrowing from other languages quite a lot. Sorry, Japanese, you're not a weird language. I'm sorry I said that, but you borrow from other languages. So I think that you could definitely make a case that what is described in Kingdom Hearts as the heart is something that we in the real world would call a soul. And KH2 kind of confuses it a little bit by saying that you have a heart, a body, and then the mind is maybe also a separate thing.
Right. So see, that's where it gets confusing.
Yeah.
My perception, if there is a soul, my perception is that that's sort of the psyche, right? Because the Aristotelian sense of the soul, it was the Greek word psyche.
Yeah.
But I would sort of say that's sort of like the mind, capital M, kind of a thing.
Sentience, I suppose.
Yeah, sentience. Thank you. So I like getting towards things like, do ants have souls? Like, is there an examination of an ant that you could do to say like, oh yeah, this has sentience. This is what tells us it has sentience. But like, so in Kingdom Hearts, that's very much a tangent. I do this all the time, so beg your pardon.
No, it's okay. It is kind of relevant in some ways, I think, because in the Kingdom Hearts universe, anything can have a heart, sort of. You have
worlds can have hearts.
Yes.
Like what? Yeah.
So
how?
people have hearts, and when I say people, I also mean like talking animals.
Yeah, talking ducks and so on and so forth.
But people, I guess, in the sense of like personhood, in the sense of sentience and all that kind of thing. So yeah, people have hearts. I think there's some case to be made that maybe worlds definitely have hearts, for one thing.
Right.
And I think there's almost a case that potentially some inanimate objects might be able to have hearts. Data can have hearts. So
that's right.
You have KH2 and Coded both go quite heavily into this idea of kind of matrix-like simulations of things, but the things in those can develop hearts, because hearts basically come down to the connections between people, I think, or at least the human hearts do.
Okay.
And so if someone or something can form connections and emotional bonds and be in people's memories, then it can develop a heart.
Right. Okay, so now on that, this is a thought that just occurred to me. We're taking sort of a very Western concept of soul, right? And then at the same time, this is a game produced by the East.
Yeah. And
so you've got things like sentience in objects, sentience in things that we would say are non-persons. But so far as I know, Japanese thought historically has attributed sentience to certain inanimate objects. You've got things like yokai and spirits inhabiting rocks, animism, and so I don't think animism is the right word. I'm trying to think of the word right here. I might have to look that up.
I know what you mean. There's the things about the ancestor spirits and various places that have significance and objects having kind of... I don't know whether it's to do with the objects themselves kind of becoming sentient, or whether it's to do with them being kind of inhabited by other things that exist that are conscious.
Right. So here it is. Animism. It's one of those things that it's kind of outside of our thought range. I mean, we're in the West, but animism is the religious belief that objects, places, and creatures possess a distinct spiritual essence. Animism perceives all things, animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather systems, human handiwork, sometimes even words, as animated and alive. So I think what you're kind of seeing is a fusion of that with the Western concept of the soul in Kingdom Hearts, so that you've got, like you were saying, things like data. Essentially, data is words, simplistically.
Yeah.
And then these things having their own kind of essence, their own aliveness to them. It's a very fascinating structure and basis for a story to build on. But a question, and then I wanted to ask you based on that, is what the heck is Kingdom Hearts?
Oh gosh, no. Right. So the thing about Kingdom Hearts, the object or thing rather than the franchise, first thing is no one knows how to pronounce it, like whether you put the emphasis on the king or the heart. So it could be Kingdom Hearts or it could be Kingdom Hearts, right?
Okay.
I tend to go for Kingdom Hearts, but part of the problem is that everyone who says it has a ridiculous inflection on everything all the time anyway. So when Zemna says it in Kingdom Hearts 2, who's the incomparable Paul St. Peter is his voice, he'll say things like,
what a voice, yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be there saying things like, "So you have come to find Kingdom Heart." It's a terrible impression, but you get the point.
No,
The
that was
inflections in
beautiful.
places.
That was great. I
mean,
feel like
yeah,
this should be full of impressions. So feel
he
free
can
to
literally just say one word and it become a meme. And I don't even know which game it's in or what it's in response to, but he says "indeed," and that's a meme.
That's hilarious. Okay, so does anybody say Kingdom Hearts?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
There was a guy who did a review, or not a review, a video about Kingdom Hearts 3 on, I think it was Kotaku. And he said at the beginning of the video, look, no one can agree on this, so I will deliberately alternate between saying Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts.
Oh.
And he does it for the whole video kind of insistently. It's very strange.
Wow.
Right, so as for what Kingdom Hearts is, no one in universe really knows either. And that's kind of the... So, first thing to say is there can be or might be multiple Kingdom Heartses.
Oh, no. No.
I mean, we're pretty sure that the one that they're looking for in the first game is what you would call the Heart of All Worlds. It's kind of an aggregation of all of the worlds that are being overrun by the Heartless, and I guess all the other worlds that are still existing as well. But it's conceived of by characters as this source of all knowledge and power.
Right. Right.
It's kind of almost deified. It's like this mysterious, inaccessible thing that maybe if you do particular things, you can reach, and it will sort of just give you ultimate power.
Right. It's sort of like if... I beg your pardon. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it gets complicated in future games because in Kingdom Hearts 2, the Kingdom Hearts that they're looking for is not the Heart of All Worlds, but the Heart of All People. And Xemnas is kind of doing some odd things to artificially make it happen. There is a Kingdom Hearts, probably, which is the one that was going on back hundreds of years before, and which Xehanort is looking for in KH3, so that he can restore the world to kind of the balance of light and dark. But what it actually is, I don't know, because I haven't finished KH3, and it probably doesn't even explain it in that.
Well, that's depressing. I actually really hope that, and I think I mentioned this to you, not at all going to happen, but I hope that Kingdom Hearts 3 is the end of this series, because I feel like they need to stop building on it and retconning and doing more to deepen it. But the game is so popular, there's going to be future Kingdom Hearts games, guarantee. Whether they do prequels or so on. Yeah.
So I think he's already said that this won't be the last... I don't know whether he said the last in the Kingdom Hearts series or the last adventure specifically of Sora's. I think what he said is this will wrap up the Dark Seeker saga, which is basically the thing in which Master Xehanort is... he's the antagonist, but I think he is also arguably one of the main characters of the whole thing. It is his story in a lot of ways. Right.
Essentially, yeah. And that sort of dawned on me last night with listening to summaries. I was like, he is the Anakin Skywalker, in a sense, of this whole overarching thing. And that it kind of all... I mean, there's the chess game motif, right? He's kind of doing all these things, and it sets up each game indirectly in some ways. But, okay, so Kingdom Hearts. I don't like that there may be multiple Kingdom Hearts because that confuses me even more. But I feel like the closest I got was, okay, if each world has a heart, and this
Yeah.
is a collection of world hearts, is it sort of the heart of the universe or the heart of the multiverse? If things have hearts, maybe that thing, the universe itself or the multiverse itself, however they'd phrase it in this,
Yeah.
is the heart. But then the confusing thing to me, and I feel like this is thematically what they're trying to do correctly at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, but it's just confusing, is when Ansem is about to open the door to Kingdom Hearts.
Fill me
and
with
he's
the
like,
power of darkness. Yeah.
yeah, and you're like, well, oh no, there's darkness. But then Sora's like, but I know Kingdom Hearts is light.
Yeah.
And he's like, light. Ah. And and the light shines out. And
That was a
then
very
it's
good impression of Ansem dying.
Oh, thank you. I try. But then so the light comes out, and then for some reason Mickey Mouse is in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did he get inside Kingdom Hearts? Not just that, but then why is there darkness in there? And so thematically, what I mean is I think that the game is trying to make the point that there's darkness and light inside of every heart, unless you happen to be one of the princesses of heart, or just a really, really good person.
Yeah.
But so when you get to the end, it's like, well, there's both in Kingdom Hearts. There's this theme of duality in Kingdom Hearts itself. So it's like, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of a good example in other stories.
Well,
it's kind of like something that could be used for good or ill.
Yeah.
Right? An immense power. Like atomic power.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And I think the franchise as a whole definitely wants to make the point that it's kind of equally bad to be super zealous about all light or all darkness, and that duality is really important because so when you get to Birth by Sleep, you see Xehanort and Ericus, another Keyblade master, who they're kind of diametrically opposed in that Xehanort is all darkness is the best and Ericus is all darkness is the worst and we should literally get rid of it all the time and have no darkness whatsoever.
Right.
And Ericus is just as wrong, if not more so. And
right.
his unwillingness to think that maybe darkness isn't terrible is basically what sets a sequence of just increasingly bad decisions that end in things going horribly wrong. That's the best. So that's the subtitle for Birth by Sleep: a series of increasingly bad decisions.
So it's almost like you could say, reading into this story that light is good and darkness is evil, like we've historically seen, is maybe a misreading of this universe. Right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like the light can be very hostile at sometimes, and then darkness can be a place where people reside at the same time. But it's weird, and it might be again because of, well, speaking of characters, there's a fusion of Disney and Final Fantasy, but then it seems to be the fusion of Western and Eastern thinking that you've got here. And so in the West, we very much think in terms of good versus evil, but in the East, it seems like there's a much more of a neutrality to the universe and things like that. You're kind of seeing here in different ways.
From what I remember of very briefly looking at Eastern philosophy at uni, there's much less kind of light and dark, good and evil. There's something and nothing, I think, is the more frequent kind of duality, and nothing isn't bad. Nothing is just as much a thing as something, as odd as that is to say grammatically, but you know what I mean. Right.
No, exactly. And it seems like you've got a combination of those thoughts here. So Organization 13 definitely bad, or contains bad guys. Right now, I'm not saying like the whole organization. Spoilers, right? But it seems like, well, they were supposed to be. Oh darn it, they're supposed to be Xehanort's clones, right, or something like that. His henchies.
Yeah. So I mean,
don't explain it. Don't explain.
I'm not going to explain too much, but like,
okay, go ahead.
The point, what Xehanort was trying to do when he set up Organization 13 was pretty definitely not good.
Okay.
And it involved lying to them.
Okay.
Not to spoil, I think Dream Drop Distance is the first one to actually confirm that. But
nobody played that. That's fine. Yeah. Who cares?
3D, that was a game. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely a game.
Okay, so I like that. Now this sort of creates a foundation for our discussion.
Cool.
I feel like this philosophically explains more of what the air of Kingdom Hearts is. It does not go anywhere near to explaining, you know, how, you know, who Roxas is, who Naminé is, all these things.
Oh,
That'll be
easy
for a
questions.
Kingdom Hearts. Oh, I
Easy
fairly,
questions.
but
Compared
I
to some
think like
others.
I think that those are rabbit trail
Oh, yeah.
questions, if you know what I mean. Like I think if we started down that route, like who is Ventus and on and on and on and on, this would be an extremely long podcast.
Yes,
but we'll
yes, it
try
would.
and keep it to Kingdom Hearts itself. Let me see here. So you played the original,
Yep.
as did I. Did you play 1.5?
Ah, right, okay. So, yes, but let's go back so we can
Okay,
establish
go ahead,
what order they
yeah.
will have. So Kingdom Hearts happens on PS2.
Uh-huh.
Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories happens on Game Boy Advance,
Okay.
which some people called 1.5 at the time, which makes things really confusing because there's
Oh,
no actual
no.
thing called 1.5.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it was basically, it was a sequel to Kingdom Hearts that kind of, a lot of people didn't even realize happened. Because it had completely different mechanics. It was on the GBA. People were like, this is some weird... Like, I think people thought it was kind of just a triple triad style card game spin-off that didn't actually have a plot.
Like a mini game,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
But no, as it turns out, it sets up pretty much everything else. And that kind of established a pattern for later on. So, yeah. So then you get Kingdom Hearts 2 on PS2,
Okay.
which I played after accidentally ordering an American copy because it turned out that it hadn't come out over here yet. But of course, region locking is a thing, and I cried.
Oh,
so-
that would be very disappointing. Wow.
Yeah. Then you get what's after that? So then you get 2 or 3 that happen around the same time, and I can't remember what order they are. So you get 358 over 2 days, I think is the number on the DS.
Okay.
Birth by Sleep on the PSP. You get coded on like a specific brand of mobile phone in Japan only, and later you get recoded on DS. I want to say, yeah, I think that's right. And then you get Dream Drop Distance, maybe.
Okay. Did you mention Birth by Sleep? I beg your
I
pardon.
think so. That was the
I looked
PSP
it up
one.
here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm
So
probably
yeah,
gonna
you're on
forget
Dream
things,
Drop
but-
Distance. Yeah, and then it's getting into the remixes here.
Yeah. I mean, the
Looking
games
at
actually get
timeline.
remixes of a sort before you then get these packages that contain lots of them. So both Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 get something called a final mix,
Okay.
which basically adds a bit of extra content, and I think was, when it was on PS2, only available in Japan. I don't think that went
Okay.
global. When you get the 1.5 remix, that's Kingdom Hearts 1 final mix available for the first time in the West.
Okay.
Along with a remake of Chain of Memories, which was the
Right.
GBA game and is now on PS2 with the same sort of engine. And you get, what's the other one on 1.5? Oh, it's a film version of 358 over 2 days.
Right. Which I started watching and did not finish.
I
couldn't-
really think Days gets a lot of like bad press that it doesn't deserve. I think the story of it is genuinely fantastic. I think playing the game is really tedious though, because
Yeah.
it's mission based, right? It's like
Right.
do this, do that, and then we'll kind of give you a cutscene every now and again.
Yeah. So watching the cutscenes, and given that there could have been all kinds of reasons that I didn't finish it, but I recall just being tired of sitting on the tower eating ice cream.
Yeah.
Maybe the game has a slow start that I wasn't invested in sitting through, but that's my experience with 358 over 2 days. I did play a little bit of Chain of Memories thanks to the HD 1.5 remix. And then after that, you've got the 2.5
Yep.
HD 2.5 remix, which was also good, right?
Yeah, which was 2 final mix, Birth by Sleep, which was the PSP one on PS3, I guess. I think that got a final mix as well, actually. I think there was an extra boss in that one. And then the I guess film version on that one was of specifically RE coded, I think. So it was a
Right.
film version of a DS version of a mobile game.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And then confusingly, so I bought those 2 HD remixes, and then they also put out a HD 2.8 final chapter
They
prologue,
did.
which at that point I was like, I'm not buying any more of these.
I mean, that's all
if
of it
they
then.
put out Right. Yeah. If they were like, I mean, I know that now, but but when it came out, I was like, well, what if they put out like an HD 2.955 remix? I'm not buying all these
Yeah.
like
You do sort of wonder,
these
like, yeah,
fractions. Yeah, like
recurring.
how far are they gonna go? Like to the 1,000th place? But anyway, yeah. So that one I passed on. That contains clips of 3D Dream Drop Distance.
No, it's got
Uh,
an actual PS4 version of Dream Drop Distance, which was a 3DS game. I
okay.
assume the controls are different. I've not actually played it, but I assume the controls are different because obviously it doesn't have a touchscreen.
Right.
It's also got zero 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a fragmentary passage. Maybe that might be the title. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's Aqua's story. She's a character in Birth by Sleep. It's what happens to her basically between Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1, I think, is kind of where it ends. But it's about a 2-3 hour game. It's basically a tech demo for the engine they were going to use for KH3.
Okay.
And then the other thing on the 2.8 disc is back cover, which is a film prequel to a mobile game which was based on a browser game.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, so question for you.
Go on.
Is Kingdom Hearts confusing?
Yes, as a franchise. I think the story is actually kind of deceptively unconfusing for the most part, because if you played it as it came out, then all the revelations that were coming in were kind of easy enough to digest. It's like, this explains this thing, and you can kind of reframe as you go to kind of account for the new things that you're learning. But I think coming in now, when there's over 10 games and you're trying to work out what happens from start to finish when the games weren't in chronological order, it is confusing, and I think it's probably something that puts off people from giving it a go.
Yeah, I think that well for me, I don't play handheld. My
Yeah.
hands are too big and my hands cramp when I play a handheld game. Really, so I could not imagine playing a Kingdom Hearts game on a handheld. That's why I really like the HD remixes.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have
they
to.
allowed me to at least experience that. Yeah, but that's the reason why I missed out on them the first time
Yeah.
around. I didn't own handhelds. I felt sort of resentful too that they would put a story title on a handheld. And like, well,
Yeah.
now I have to have an entirely different system just to experience sort of the next part of this game. Now, again, that's a moot point now, but now, like you said, I feel like it's overwhelming to have so much content
Yeah.
readily available, and how to sift through it, how to tackle it, and in what order. It seems like what you said, that the story itself,
It makes
I'll say
sense
the
as
story
you go
itself,
through it.
right, exactly, and the story itself is very interesting. I think it's fascinating, but it seems like it's the way the story was presented over the years through all of these various titles is what makes it confusing.
Yeah, I don't really know what the reason was. I'm assuming there was some kind of commercial impetus for them to decide, let's put it on literally every game's going to be on a different console. I don't really know
Right.
what would have driven them to decide to do that, unless there was some kind of like pressure to do. Because Nomura's the kind of guy who would go, this story will only work on this platform, so we'll do it. But I don't think that is the case for.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see why you have to have one on DS and one on PSP. It is an odd choice. But I mean, yeah, obviously nowadays that's not so much of a problem, but you have the problem where, if anything, the disparity between how complicated the story is and how complicated the actual franchise is even more obvious, because it's all in one place. And you're going, okay, so here's just a list of the games. What do I do? What do I play first? What do I need to understand?
Yeah, exactly. Have you played all of them?
In some form or another, yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite title out of this series?
The one that most people would say, and I'm going to agree, is Kingdom Hearts 2. Because it took everything that the first one was, and it just kind of upped it to 11. Like, it kind of put a lot of focus on these original characters. It had a huge cast of original characters.
Right. The original characters, I think, are much more center focused than the first game was very much the Disney Final Fantasy.
Well, this is the thing. If you look at the plot of the first one, if you kind of map it out, it's sort of, okay, step 1, we're on an island, there's darkness. Step 2 through 10 is like Disney. And then step 11 is I am Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. Oh, okay. So it has a huge
it's sort
problem
of
with
the
backloading.
first one. No, exactly. Yeah, the first problem or the first game does all these things like the Tarzan stage, the deep jungle has like almost nothing to do with the rest of the story.
New.
Right? It's sort of like these interludes that are super enjoyable. But then you get to the end of the game and you're like, "Oh, this is what this story was about the whole time?"
Yeah, it is kind of hilarious looking back on it to think that Maleficent actually thought she was the main antagonist. It was like, how did you think that was what was going on?
Yeah.
I guess it kind of eases you in some ways because you have this plot where Sora's looking for his friends and Donald and Goofy are with him because Mickey told them to follow the key and they know there's some problem with the worlds losing their hearts and stuff. So they have a reason to be going to these different worlds.
Right.
And things do happen kind of in isolation on those worlds that point them in the right direction of what they're looking for. But they do kind of follow basically their own story. And I mean, it continues into the other games, and it's kind of a criticism that some people have, but KH2 handles it by having 2 visits to each world. So the first one, you basically just reenact like part of the plot of the film.
Right.
And except instead of Shan Yu just wanting to take over because he's Shan Yu, it's because he's got darkness in his heart or something. And then the second visit, there's like a member of the organization there for some reason.
Right.
But KH2's combat is astonishingly good.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna say my favorite game in this series is the first one, because I really dug the Final Fantasy and the Disney characters. I don't so much like the original characters for Kingdom Hearts. There's something in me that just doesn't like Organization 13, like anything about them. I don't like that they all have different colored hair. I don't like that they have weird names. I can't keep track of them. I feel like it's Dory, Ori, Nori, Gimli, Bofur, Bombur, and like the dwarves again, right? And I feel like, are you the dopey one or are you the sleepy one?
They're all the angry one.
But it's part. Well, maybe all the angry one. That's a fair reference. This is a Disney related thing. But what I liked about the first one then is, I really liked how focused it was on the Disney and the Final Fantasy characters. And I felt it was less confusing for me than the second game. I've played through the second one 2 or 3 times, and I still reach the end. And I'm like, who are you? And why do you turn into a boat? Like, I don't like, what is this game? And then that's at a certain point as well. I can't.
That's almost like a Square problem, though. Is just, hey, there's this guy and he looks like a human, and now he's
yes.
Just so you know. But then he turns back into a human
right,
for the final
exactly.
form because there's like a weird sort of bell curve of humanity to power aspect ratio.
Yeah. No, and that's totally it's very much a Square thing. It felt like it cut loose, but and this is, it could be a personal defect. I was just very confused by Kingdom Hearts 2. This is a weird thing now, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on it. Is I like the level design in Kingdom Hearts 1 more than in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's a thing, right?
They're a lot more. Okay. They're a lot more vertical in KH1. There's a lot more kind of up and down.
All right, and they're less hallways.
I think it is kind of not unfair to say that a lot of the worlds in KH2 are like hallways, or they're not necessarily straight lines, but they have kind of one end and the other end, and you go from one end to the other end.
Exactly. Right.
KH1 is very much kind of learning from, I guess for a 3D platformer, it was probably fairly early, really. There wasn't really that much history for it to learn from there, I guess. But Crash would have happened.
Well, you would have had the early 3D age with the N64 and PS1 with 3D platformers, but Kingdom Hearts has much less camera issues than the early 3D platformers. I'm thinking about like Mario 64 and things like that. And Mario 64 was even on the polished end of the early 3D era. But then by the time you get to 2002 and Kingdom Hearts, you have a very polished 3D platforming.
It's interesting that you mentioned the camera, because the camera in KH1, and they changed this on the remake because all the later ones did it with the right analog stick. But you could hold L2 and R2 to rotate the camera. And that was like the only kind of thing you could do, which was really odd at the time. But I guess because it was my first one, so I was like, this must be how all the games move the camera. Yeah.
No, and definitely you see an evolution still of those controls.
But it's never really changed too much.
But thank goodness. Yeah, but thank goodness it wasn't things like when you stepped into a corner, suddenly your character disappears and you're looking at like outside or underneath the platform that you're on. And
Yeah,
you're like,
I mean,
where am I?
I've watched a lot of speedruns of all the Kingdom Hearts games, and I don't think there's
Uh-huh.
any actually that use out of bounds stuff, because it is really well put together. There's a lot of kind of sequence skipping, where you just do things quicker than others so that you can, or earlier than others rather, so that you've then got things and you don't have to do other things. But I don't think there's anything where you actually break the game, basically.
And I did like. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so KH1 is definitely the most vertical until KH3, anyway. From what I've seen of KH3 so far, it's hugely vertical.
Yes, and which I adored.
Yeah, but it can get a little bit confusing, I find. I mean, there's always it's always done this thing, and I think all the games do this to some extent, where at the end of each cutscene there'll be like a nice lingering shot of kind of the bit you're supposed to go to next. Like someone will run off some way, and then the camera will just kind of pan out, like, look, Sora, just make sure that's where you're going. You know this.
Right.
But I mean, levels like Atlantica, which had
Oh, yeah.
swimming controls for some reason. And I actually don't hate it. I don't hate Atlantica in KH1, but there's no denying that it was a bit of a kind of, oh, this is different. And I think Monstro is the other one where I can really get lost, because the inside of Monstro, who is a whale, for those who don't know, is this it's this kind of psychedelic purple and blue and green thing, and every
featureless,
Yes.
essentially. That was the problem, right?
Every door to every room looks the same.
Exactly.
And from what I heard only recently, apparently the door that you're supposed to go through actually glows a bit brighter than the others, so you do have some kind of way of knowing. But unless you work that out, which I did not at all, you're just kind of trying them until you end up in the right place and not knowing whether you've been here before.
And it's very much a historical JRPG inclusion, that having a maze dungeon.
Yeah.
So it's like this is very Final Fantasy-esque, having a maze dungeon.
A mage dungeon would be
But
fun.
a mage dungeon would
Actually, no, that sounds... There are some implications to that.
and Donald Duck is a mage, and let's just take a moment to say how awesome that is.
Absolutely.
That Donald Duck is a mage.
What would his mage name be?
But the Donald Duck mage.
Yeah.
That's very boring. It would be the mage that nobody understands. And that's why there's subtitles.
I do love I think in every game there's at least one bit where he'll just make this noise, and it won't be subtitled because he's not saying anything. He's just expressing frustration.
Right. Well, right, and like historically, the character. I mean, you ever watch old Disney cartoons? Like when he loses his temper, he's a sailor, right? So he loses his temper a lot, and he's just. It sounds like he's cussing, but obviously not, because this is very much a children's cartoon.
It's like how you make a duck swear without having him.
Right, yeah, and he's out, and like, you don't know what you're saying. But yeah, so the level design, I'm glad that there's some validation for that. I will full on say that my confusion of Kingdom Hearts 2 is very much a subjective thing, and my disdain for Organization 13 is very much a subjective thing. I don't feel like I know enough about them, but that's because I haven't played all these other titles. But I do like that in Kingdom Hearts 3 we see a return to more complex areas, and not so much worlds that are just like one room.
Yeah.
You know, like so you've got like even in the first game, Olympus was a tiny world. It was like the Colosseum.
I mean, Olympus is the exception to the rule, to kind of the design of all the other worlds. It is definitely the smallest, because it is. I guess it's 3 rooms, right? It's kind of this outside bit, and then there's the lobby,
like the foyer. Yeah.
And then there's the bit where you actually do the fighting.
And that's it.
Yeah. No other world is like that, to be fair. And in KH2 they don't solve the problem, because they don't add more there so much as they kind of invent a different thing by saying, okay, there's the Colosseum here and then there's the underworld. Right? Yeah. And obviously then 3 puts you in different bits of it. I won't say too much.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there you go. I feel like the first game, so okay, we'll talk about the worlds for a little bit. Let's do that. You've got the Magic Kingdom world, right? The castle, which you never go to in the first game.
Disney Castle, yeah.
Yeah.
It is technically, you can access it through like cheating, because they had to model it for cutscenes, but you can't go there normally.
Okay. So I always wasn't sure about that. That's good to hear. There was Destiny Islands, which you can't return to once the game's begun.
No.
There's Traverse Town,
Yeah.
which has some great like hopping on rooftops looking for treasure chests.
Yeah.
Some great hidden areas. And then you've got the Alice in Wonderland, Wonderland, which is actually my favorite Disney movie of all time, is the 1950 Alice in Wonderland. I love that movie. And I was so delighted to see that was in this game.
Yeah, and I think it's probably either the first or second Disney World that you go to. It's one of the first two that unlock,
right?
and I think it's probably the easier one to go to first.
Right. I loved it. I wish they could have gotten more of the voice actors or voice acting, but again, that movie came out in 1950, so you couldn't very well have like, the original Mad Hatter. Oh, what a very merry on birthday it is. You couldn't have that sort of thing. But then the other one that unlocks is Deep Jungle, right? And that was Tarzan. Then you've got Halloween Town. These are not in order. Halloween Town, Monstro.
Yep.
The Coliseum.
Yep.
That's 5.
So hang on, let me do this in my head because I can see the map. So
okay.
So you start at Traverse Town. That splits out into Deep Jungle or Wonderland, I think. Then you go from there to the Coliseum. Then there you think you're going somewhere clever, but then Monstro comes and eats you, so you're nothing him.
Right.
Then you go to Halloween Town, which is The Nightmare Before Christmas, or Agrabah, Aladdin.
Agrabah, how could I forget? One of my other favorite Disney films.
From there you go to Neverland, but it's not really Neverland, it's just Hook's ship.
Right, okay, so that was another world that was a little disappointing to me, because I love the flight controls.
Yes.
I loved flying around, but I was like, there's no space for it. There's barely any space for it.
It's really odd how the flying feels so much better than the swimming, even though they're the exact same controls.
Yeah.
It's strange.
That is strange. I don't know why.
Yeah, so you do Neverland.
I don't know.
And then you go to Hollow Bastion, which I think is an original world. I mean, I thought at first that it was based off like whatever world Maleficent was supposed to come from, but I think actually it is just an original world.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's not like Sleeping Beauty's castle or anything like that.
And then from there you go to a place called the End of the World, which is really odd.
Yeah, there you are. The end of the universe. So I was going to ask too, which was your preference, the swimming or the flying? Mine was the flying as well.
100%.
Definitely. And I don't know why. Maybe it was more glidey and slippery than swimming.
I wonder if it's maybe just because you have the freedom to walk if you want to. Like if you're in Atlantica, you've got a tail, so you can't set down and just kind of have a little wander. You've got to grab a dolphin if you want to go somewhere quick, which means that you lose a lot of your like movement abilities. Like you can't dodge roll. I think you can kind of do a quick swim or something.
Right.
But you've got the freedom to set down if you want, so maybe it doesn't feel as kind of constricting, I guess.
Maybe. So, and then with the worlds, do any of the worlds in this game represent your favorite Disney movie? Do you have a number one favorite Disney movie?
I'm not actually a huge Disney guy. Which seems weird as such a big KH fan, but I really like Mulan.
Okay, Mulan is a great film.
Partly because the songs are just so good.
Oh, dude, Be a Man is such a great song. I love that song.
Oh,
Every time
Donny
it comes
Osmond.
on, I have goosebumps, and then I have to sing it every time it comes on.
You have to stand up. You have to like flex.
Oh yeah. Oh, so good. But yeah, and there is a Mulan level in the second game, right?
There is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's cool.
I think I do really like Halloween Town in the first one, because it has that. It's a completely different aesthetic. It's like it's like, oh, we actually are in the film, as opposed to being like a normal looking guy, duck and dog, just hanging out with Alice or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean the second one and beyond do kind of more to address that. So Donald has this thing even in the first one where he's like I've got magic that'll just turn us into fish so that we don't stand out too much.
Yeah.
And you're like, why were you not doing this when we were in a jungle with gorillas and you're whatever. But yeah, so he in Halloween Town for some reason, even though everyone's relatively normal, well, no, they're not normal, but they're humanoid.
Yeah.
You basically just put a mask on. KH2, you can go to Christmas Town and you get a Christmas hat, which is nice.
Yeah.
Do you actually? That might not be true. I think in KH2 vanilla, you just stay the same and the music stays the same. I know in Final Mix, there's different music in Christmas Town. It's not
Okay.
just that this is Halloween.
Okay.
I can't remember whether your outfit changes.
I thought, well, when you said it, I thought I remembered it that way, but now I don't know.
I think it might do.
I don't know. Well, are there, okay, so you're not a huge Disney fan. So I guess this question wouldn't really apply. But I was going to ask you if there was a Disney intellectual property that we hadn't seen yet in Kingdom Hearts that you're hoping to see eventually. But I mean, they have a lot covered for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, when they acquired like LucasArts and Marvel and stuff, people were like, we're going to be fighting with Captain America against Darth Vader.
Yeah, please don't.
And I haven't finished KH3, so it's possible. I don't know whether that happens.
Oh, man.
But I think that's relatively unlikely.
I would think so.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Films. Dumbo, I remember kind of liking as a kid, even though it really psyched me out.
Dumbo's a creepy movie, yeah.
Yeah, he does appear as a summonable character, but there's not actually a Dumbo world yet, I don't think. No, I'm pretty sure there's not a Dumbo world.
No. I remember there's a Lion King world in the second game.
There is, yeah. Simba's a summon in the first game, and then there's the Lion King game
right.
world in the second.
So, and some of these wouldn't even... Oh, I know! This is maybe my third favorite Disney film is I would love to see a Sword in the Stone world that takes place in old London. And, you know, you've got like little kid Arthur and stuff. I love that movie. That's a great movie. Jungle Book, I don't think we've seen. Have we? Well, I don't know about the small games. But there's there's references to a lot of these though. So, Lilo and Stitch.
Stitch is Stitch is a summon in 2, and then there's a world called Deep Space in Birth by Sleep, which is like a spaceship where the alien characters from Lilo and Stitch are. You don't get to go to Hawaii, sadly. That would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
But yeah, there is a world in Birth by Sleep based on Lilo and Stitch.
Okay. All right. So I mean, there's still plenty more. Like a Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't think there was.
Is in Dream Drop Distance.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
Aristocats. That would be boring.
Has not been anything as far as I know.
That would be really boring though. It's just like a bunch of cats that like can sing and dance. Like okay.
I mean, there's a couple of real left field ones already. I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting Pirates of the Caribbean when Kingdom Hearts 2 happened.
Yeah, that's one of those.
And definitely not for it to come back for 3.
Yeah, and that's one. Robin Hood with the anthropomorphic animals. That would be pretty great.
And they would fit in really well there.
Yeah, no, it definitely would. All right, so I'm looking forward to Kingdom Hearts 4. Hopefully we can get some Robin Hood, and I forgot what was the other title I named.
Well, I mean, we've got Kingdom Hearts 3.1 and all that to get through first, so...
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's in there. Maybe, fingers crossed. Okay, moving on here. Let's see. We could talk about music briefly. And then do a couple final questions, and we'll start tidy this up here. So music. Do you have any favorite tracks? I think this soundtrack is great.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, there was something that I saw the other day on Twitter where some reviewer had said, man, Yoko Shimomura is really good, even when she's not just ripping off Disney tracks. And I was like, you've completely missed the point there.
Yeah, that's pretty unfair.
I mean, I think a lot of the Disney worlds in all of the games do have original music. I think there's a couple of exceptions where they actually do use, like, pretty much straight up. So in Halloween Town, it is playing This Is Halloween the whole time.
Right,
but I think most of them have original music that's just kind of based on the feel of it.
Right. Well, so I was thinking about this yesterday, and it's still an amazing talent to be able to remaster or remix those familiar themes and make them fit this new context. So it's not...
For sure.
It's one thing if you're watching a movie and the score has to really follow the tone and the pace of the film as it's playing. But in a world where essentially you're just going to camp there as long as you want and explore and fight bad guys and all these things, these themes have to be much more, I'd say, secondary to specific emotional beats. but then also be there to provide the atmosphere of these worlds. So, for example, when you enter the 100-Acre Wood, which one of the things I love about Kingdom Hearts is that you've got like these really gruff, just like calloused gamers who are like, yeah, I love like headshots and zombies and like all kinds of hardcore things. And you're like, and I really love being in the 100-Acre Wood with Winnie the Pooh. It's so adorable.
And just like helping Tigger bounce. It's so nice.
Oh my gosh. And it brings out your inner child. That's always
sure.
there. And sometimes you stifle it as an adult to appear adult or, you know, for whatever reason. But then you reach 100-Acre Wood, and at first I remember being at first like, oh my gosh, what if my parents walk in? Like, this is embarrassing. And then you start playing, and you're like, this is extremely endearing, super heartwarming.
Well, I mean, it kind of speaks to the reason that I kind of picked it up in the first place, doesn't it? Because you do have these, you're hanging out with like Squall, although he calls himself Leon in this because he doesn't want to remember who he was or something. No, there is a reason, and I do know it, but I'm not going to explain it because anyway, you're hanging out with like Leon and Yuffie and Cloud's there, but dressed as Vincent because they wanted Vincent and then decided to use Cloud. But anyway, you're hanging out with all these guys, and you're like, yeah, I'm really cool. These guys have guns that are swords, and we're just the best. And then you can go into Winnie the Pooh's world and just be like, yeah, I'm just going to pick some carrots. This is good. And it makes you feel like it's okay to be both, you know?
Right, and that's wonderful. I think that's a wonderful thing that this game does. But the theme that plays in the 100-Acre Wood is very much that Winnie the Pooh.
Yes, it is.
Winnie the Pooh, just without the lyrics. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's so ingrained in society. But to be able to play around with that melody a little bit so that it's not just the 30-second segment at the start of a Winnie the Pooh film, but that it's something that can play and have variations and have instruments and all these things that are much more robust than that original melody, is, I think, really brilliant. And she does that multiple times.
She does, and it doesn't really apply so much to 100-Acre Wood, but in most worlds you have a kind of regular theme and a battle theme, if not more than one of each. And the transition between the two is usually like really smooth. They feel like they belong to the same place.
No, definitely, yeah.
But I think so there's obviously that talent, but the original music is so good. I mean, Dearly Beloved is just and I mean, you get to the point where people are as excited to hear the new version of Dearly Beloved as they are to play the game.
I certainly was. I camped out on the title screen, like I'm sure millions did, just to hear that.
Just smiling. That's it.
And Simple and Clean is the way that I'm feeling tonight, and it's
hard to let it go.
Time. Yeah, it is. I love that song. I'm very satisfied with the 3 big numerical entries and their sort of opening theme songs.
Yeah.
I love Simple and Clean. I love My Sanctuary. Yeah. Oh, with that percussion. Yeah. It's so good. And then Face My Fears. Thank you.
With Skrillex.
Skrillex. Who, I thought that these 3 songs are great. I really love Simple and Clean. And that opening intro is something I could rewatch over and over again. It's so good.
It's unbelievable when you pick up this game and you don't really know what you're expecting, and then as if to just clarify, no, you don't know what you're expecting. It's like, okay, anime style opening, and we've got this like electronica EDM music playing, and then we're gonna just put you in like this choral nothingness on a stained glass window, and then you're in an island.
Yeah.
It's like, cool.
Yeah, you already went through. It's sort of like easing you into the very different ideas that are going to be here.
Yeah.
You know, like Disney, Final Fantasy, the soul, animism, anime, all these things. And so you're playing this game. You're like, what is this?
Yes.
So getting into some of the final questions. That's nice that we were talking about the opening. In the opening, which I guess we could say is sort of a dream sequence thing, right?
Yeah.
Is the stained glass tutorial. One question that I really wanted to ask you, especially after you wrote that incredible trilogy of writing on Kingdom Hearts and humanism, right?
Yep.
Which you should definitely go to your blog, and I'll link to that in the description so the readers can find it.
Thank you.
Or the listeners rather. Hopefully you're not reading this podcast.
Well, if someone's transcribed it, more power to them.
Yeah, there you go. But okay, so there's the voice in text that tells
Yeah.
Sora you will be the one to open the door.
Yeah.
Now, who is that?
Well, there's a couple of theories. So I think people at first thought maybe it was Mickey.
Okay.
But there's no real way that it could have been Mickey if you think about, like, okay, how could Mickey actually be talking? The most convincing thing that I've seen probably is that it's a character called Ventus, who is introduced in Birth by Sleep and who has a very strong connection to Sora. I think it's
whose essence is in Sora, right, or something like that.
Sora is holding his heart for the time being, basically, as of the beginning of KH3. But he's already holding it by Kingdom Hearts 1. I suppose the other thing you could say is it's just kind of Kingdom Hearts itself, or possibly some kind of sort of non-specific manifestation of the realm of light or something.
I don't like that because again, it brings up the what the heck is Kingdom Hearts? Is Kingdom Hearts itself sentient? That's when I played this game and completed it for the first time, and then started it again. That's what I thought. I was like, is this Kingdom Hearts calling to him? Is this some sort of like metaphysical entity, whatever, that's calling to him? But the Ventus thing is something that I hadn't thought about before, because again, Ventus is so far from my understanding of this series.
Well, nothing's quite 100%, because if it is Ventus, why is he specifically saying you should do these things when he probably doesn't know about them yet?
Okay.
But I mean,
that would kind of rule it out for me. Yeah.
Well,
let's say it's Kingdom Hearts then.
Yeah,
because maybe that's the most satisfying answer.
Well, I'm never quite sure how literally those sequences are supposed to be taken, because we know that the heart is actually a place. We know that the dive to the heart, which is that stained glass area, actually does physically exist in some sense, because there are battles that happen there, that you can see the effects of in the real world. But
so then it comes back to, is it a dream sequence that just exists in Sora's head, or was it some kind of transportation of his mind while he happened to be unconscious?
Yeah, I mean, he wakes up and thinks it was a dream, but I think it's probably fair to assume that there was some kind of element of reality to it. But as we know, again, because it's Eastern versus Western, like, can we even make the dichotomy between real and not real? It's tricky.
Exactly. Yeah, it is tricky. One of the things, and again, I find that fascinating about this game, how it does that balance. So I really wanted to ask you that, who talks to Sora at the beginning. I wanted to ask you, what is Kingdom Hearts? We've covered that. Let's check out sort of. We'll have to have an entire episode on just like what is Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
So here's a question. This is from Adventure Rules. Thank you, Ian, for sending us this question.
Ian.
You're a great guy. He's asked,
I love it.
Best and worst redesigns for the Final Fantasy cast. So you could go ahead and do that first. Best and worst redesigns for the Final Fantasy cast.
So it's a good question, because some of them get more extensive redesigns than others.
Right.
So originally in Olympus Coliseum, it was going to be Vincent Valentine from from Final Fantasy VII, rather, who was showing up, but they ended up changing it to Cloud Strife, which is why he's wearing Vincent's clothes. He's got the glove and the cape and stuff. And this is my first experience seeing Cloud Strife. I'm like, man, what a cool guy. What a cohesive outfit, I guess.
Have you played 7 since Final Fantasy 7? Okay.
Yes.
So then you go back and you're like, well, what the... Yeah. He looks...
I thought there was some weird explanation.
Yeah, he looks great in that cloak. He's got sort of that shoulder piece that is very much Cloud still, and then he's got the Buster Sword as well. But it's a weird fusion
it's a strange choice just to kind of go, well, we'll have him but put him in his clothes.
Right.
But then, so in Kingdom Hearts 2, you see him in his Advent Children costume, which I think kind of fits him a bit better. Who else is there? Yuffie has kind of a similar design. She's one of the main kind of Final Fantasy characters in the first one.
Her design is pretty similar.
She was also supposed to be someone else. She was meant to be Riku from Final Fantasy X and X2. But because they had a Riku already, they were like...
It's too confusing,
That's confusing.
That was good on them.
Riku does show up in Kingdom Hearts 2, actually. She and the other YRP fairies, so Riku and Pain are fairies for some reason. Let's say that's the worst redesign, actually, because I don't know why they're fairies.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah, they are. So I'm looking at a picture of them right here. Aerith is fairly exactly the same as she
Pretty
was.
much
Yeah.
what you'd expect. Yeah,
Selfie was just like exactly the same except younger.
but
Yeah.
younger. Yeah, Tidus or Tidus is younger as well.
Oh, okay.
As is
What's
Waka.
your preference on the pronunciation? Tidus.
In my head, it's always Tidus, I think. But I imagine I don't know if I've ever actually heard. Do they say it out loud in 10, or do they not because you put his name in?
Waka says it. He says Tidus.
He says Tidus,
and I hate
right?
that he says Tidus. I'm like, he's ocean based. He's got a water sword. He plays blitzball for crying out loud. It's Tidus, you guys. It's not Tidus. Tidus sounds like tedious. It just sounds ridiculous to me. Anyways, but Tidus has I mean, it just looks like him younger, but with different clothes on it.
Yeah, and he's got a stick.
Yeah. Waka just looks like a younger, trimmed down version of the character. I always liked Waka. I'm Polynesian, so people that I grew up with talk like Waka. Like, hey, yeah, we're gonna go to the beach and play blitzball. So I always thought that was endearing about Waka, but his hair is ridiculous. Like his quail hair.
I mean that's just a standing trait in Final Fantasy Kingdom Hearts anyway.
Yes,
right?
The anime hair.
That's as much a part of character designs as the zippers.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got Cid, who was a shopkeeper. I think his redesign is pretty boring, so I'll say his redesign is my least favorite. It's just like him in like a white shirt with some kind of belt, huge like garter belt on, and
I think Sephiroth might be the only other one to appear in KH1, and he has. He's got one wing, which he doesn't ever actually have in the game, as far as I know, apart from that very last sequence in FF7. In KH2, for some reason, he's got like 8 wings just kind of coming out from under his coat.
Yeah. Don't know.
No.
But I like the Sephiroth design in Kingdom Hearts. I think it's hilarious that he was voiced by Lance Bass, right? I think.
I know, yeah. For like all of 4 battle dialogue grunts, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember completing the game and looking at the voice actors and just being like, wait, Lance Bass is Kingdom Hearts is Sephiroth? Like the dude from that one NSYNC? Yeah, I was like, huh? How? Yeah. Why? Anyways, I'm gonna say my favorite redesign is Leon's. I like that they gave him the longer hair.
He looks good.
It makes him look a little more mature.
Got rid of the fur as well.
Yeah. I always felt the fur was a little over the top. Looked like a boa almost, you know? I was just kind of like, what? Are you really that warm? I mean, it's a short sleeve jacket. Why? But yeah, I like his design. I like the wing motif on his back. Yeah, so there's those guys, the Final Fantasy characters. One of my favorite parts about this. And then we got another question here. This is from Winstolf, the Bizarro Mage.
Yeah.
Who said, I've never actually played these games before, but I hear they're very complex story-wise, which I'm sure you'll cover on the pod. Prophetic. My question is, how would each member of the panel sell this series to me? Or would you even? How would you sell this series?
Well, Bizarro, I don't know your gaming tastes, but I would say if you enjoy JRPG type stories, then you'll like this because it's that up to 11. If you enjoy kind of weird aesthetics that shouldn't go together but somehow do, then you'll like this. If you like tight combat, then you'll definitely like at least a couple of the games. And 2 in particular is held up as being like, you know, challenging in exactly the right ways. So I think if you like that kind of thing, then it should be for you. If you don't like any of that, then
Disney.
Yeah, Disney's there.
I'm gonna say if you like sort of the weirdness of classic SquareSoft, at their high fantasy peak. This is not like high fantasy, like, you know, swords and sorcery, but it was very much like SquareSoft at their weirdest. I mean, supposedly it comes about when I think it was like Sakaguchi and Hashimoto are saying, man, we should do something really out there. And then they share an office with like some Disney execs or something and just bump into them in a lift and go, should we do this? And they're like, yeah, okay. Wow, I didn't know that. That totally explains Kingdom Hearts. It's weird because Kingdom Hearts feels like it could be a Final Fantasy. And that was something that I always liked about it. It feels like it's a Final Fantasy spin-off. Just a really delightful game. So, sir, if you didn't have any other comments or talking points that you want to hit, I think we did pretty complex talk on this game.
There's so much more that you could say. You could do so many episodes about this, and I'm sure future episodes on different games will cover a bunch of stuff. But it's one of those games that just doesn't come around very often. And then, I mean, it does because there's now 12 of them. But you know what I mean.
I know
it's one of those ideas where you're just like
12 compared to 2 million games out there. Yeah, so it is still very rare.
I think it's culturally important in some way.
I like that phrasing. That's a good selling point right there too.
Oh yeah, there you go, Bizarro. Yeah, it's culturally important.
Culturally important. Well, you talk about like gaming. Sora is iconic at this point.
Yeah.
There's people pining for him to get into Smash Brothers, which I think would be amazing. But it's such a landmark in gaming. I think this is something that you can say. This was a game that really made 2002 special. And the early 2000s really took a lot of cues from Kingdom Hearts. But in closing, usually we do this thing, and you've listened to a couple episodes, so you know it's coming, of recommended similar games. So what are some similar games to Kingdom Hearts 1 that you would recommend? That's
there's a fantastic game called Kingdom Hearts 2, which is really quite similar. It's tricky. I think some of the kind of early 2000s, late 90s JRPGs like Vagrant Story and that kind of thing. And then beyond that, I mean, it depends what kind of thing you're looking at. If you're looking at the kind of challenging combat, I almost think Dark Souls is actually not hugely dissimilar because you kind of have to learn the way that you move and how weighty things are and how your enemies move and that kind of thing. Although obviously in almost every other respect it's completely different. If you're looking for a crossover, then things like Dissidia, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah, there you go. Go play Dissidia and Dark Souls.
Okay. So I actually have no idea for this question. I wrote it down. I was like, I don't know. The game that keeps popping into my mind is Secret of Mana, just because it was an action RPG. Not at all similar in terms of crossovers or tonality or subject matter.
Chrono Trigger, maybe?
Chrono Trigger is a beautiful game. Anytime I can recommend Chrono Trigger, it's a good day. So, but yeah, Chrono Trigger is very much more, it's got the active time battle system.
And it's got what I think is a complex but kind of thematically very powerful story as well.
Yes, thank you. We should have you on. We should have you on the Chrono Trigger podcast.
No, I know nowhere near enough about Chrono Trigger.
Oh, come on! But it's so
I've
good.
played it, but I can't
we could talk about
it.
the metaphysical aspects of Chrono Trigger with you.
Oh,
I know you. I know you love that sort of thing. But yeah.
Sometimes Vaguely Philosophical.
Right. Shout out right there. We should change your name to Sometimes Likes Metaphysical Mage. That's a terrible name.
No, let's not.
Yeah, let's not do it. Well, thank you, Chris. Dude, this was a really enjoyable conversation.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, I think we got pretty deep. I almost want to read up more on like theories of the soul from different writers and things like that in history, and then reapproach Kingdom Hearts again and be like, okay,
there's more to be said.
Yeah, definitely more to be said. You know what would be? This just dawned on me. Recommended reading at the end of a Mage cast would be a great idea, because a lot of subjects in games bridge upon ideas that have people have talked about for 4,000 years. So it would be interesting to that's a long time. That's hyperbole.
I'm trying to think of I cannot possibly think of any right now, but yeah.
Like Gilgamesh is right.
Oh yeah,
really old, right? I can't put a number on it, but it might be 4,000 years old. I don't know.
It's good though. It's still very readable.
Yeah, definitely.
Depending on the translation, but yeah.
Well, depending on the translation. All right. Well, thank you, sir. I think in closing, what we should do is sing Simple and Clean.
Oh God.
No.
Wait, the Japanese version or the English? Because they do have different melodies.
They do. I do not know Japanese, so I'm going to say the English version.
Me neither.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good night.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that episode of MageCast as much as I did. If so, please follow, subscribe, share, and leave us a review to help us reach a wider audience. If you enjoy our work, please consider supporting us in our vision for the future of gaming conversations through patreon.com/The Well-Read Mage. Special thanks to my Magely colleague, Brent Mead, for sound editing. The MageCast theme song, Post Atmosphere, was composed by fellow mage Russell Gordon and can be found on his YouTube and SoundCloud. This episode may be over, but the legend will live on, passed down by the dwarves, the elves, and the dragons.